This next cultural insight, the trapping trail, didn't seem to have as much of a tie-in with the game as much as it did to just explore some more of the culture, not cultural, more of the culture. It was talking about, or this man was talking about his father, and they would go out trapping, and they would move from their home and head out to where they usually do, I suppose, or where they knew that it would be fruitful to lay down traps. And they would go until they hit the spot that they wanted to be at. They would end up building an apuya, which is what it seems like in Alaska is what they call an igloo. Actually, igloos are more of the Canadian name for a snow house or an ice house, which I thought was interesting. So apuya, it's interesting. Anyway, they would make the apuya, and then the dad would go out and set traps, set up a line of traps. They would hunker down for the night. I think spend a day there, let their dogs rest. They would rest and all that, and then on the next day, along this trail, they would go visit his father's sister, and they would hang out there and enjoy their time there for a night. And then during their stay there, their father would go back and check the traps. And so it's just an interesting tale to know about how they ended up going about supplying for themselves and surviving in such the conditions that they were in. Again, not applying directly to the game, but just some interesting information on the people. So in The Heartbeat of the Community, they speak about the importance of the drum within a community. And actually all of it's right there. It's a great title for it because they say the drum represents life and vitality. Because when you're drumming, eventually it'll line up with your heartbeat and you'll be able to feel it, more within you. And it drives you to dance, or it drives you it's just like the beat of any good song. If people who are into house music or whatever, or dubstep, or even like rock or country or whatever it is, but I'm just thinking about the like boom boom, like that bass, like it feels like a giant heartbeat. And I think that's why it surges through so many people, and can drive you to dance and have fun and let loose. And that's the type of thing that they're tapping into with this. And I know I probably just like discounted all of my thought processes by saying dubstep and house music, but if you just think about the bass and how it actually feels, like those vibrations, or hearing that sound and what it makes you want to do, and whether it's jump or dance or anything like that. So what they're specifically talking about, though, is that the drum represents life and vitality, which I find incredibly interesting, especially since the owl man in the game was the one who asked us for the drum. And so was he in turn helping us find life, or was his drum actually stolen and then we were returning it to him, or were we giving someone their life back through our travels? We helped somebody out along the way and help them get back to life, to relive again, which is very cool. And I don't remember exactly, but I don't remember the things underground actually playing the drum. I just remember them having it. And I see a picture of the thumbnail for the next video, the cultural insight, and it looks like the little things that stole the drum. And so I'm wondering how that will play into the whole story. But that's a really interesting concept, I think, because they said that it can bring a community together. You will know if you are from a certain area or a certain community once you have been introduced to this drum beat. They would get together and have, just parties, essentially. It looked like they would get around, a whole line of people would be drumming, and they would finally get on the same beat, and everybody's feeling that same pulse, and people are dancing and having fun. And I think that's why it represents life and the wealth of life within you, is because it feels like a heartbeat, and it can make you change what you're doing. It can influence you. I think that's cool. I'm really into this. I'm digging these cultural insights. I hope you are too. I'm having fun with this. Let's get on to the next one. So this one was interesting. The little people. So what it talks about are the little people that had stolen the drum from the Owlman, or they had a drum that you recovered. It said, "Find my drum." Anyway, whatever. The game happened. But the little people that were underground, they were throwing boulders at us, and that one pushed like a giant boulder that knocked all the platforms out from under us. They're saying that it's part of the folklore slash is believed, because they're saying that it's not like the boogeyman. Like, people have claimed that they've seen these little people, and the little people are about the size of your pinky to your elbow, like that. And possess superhuman strength. Even though they're so small, they have the strength to carry an entire caribou or push a giant boulder to crush their enemies or something. And they can be mischievous, and they can try to steal things, but they're also to possess the ability to be helpers. So it's interesting. And they said that the further north you go from that area, the more people you're going to talk to that say that they've seen the little people. And there's one interview in there, a lady says that there's a place that we know, but we don't share, essentially. And then that was all. So that could have been an editing thing, editing a sentence together to make it seem spooky, or she could have been talking about, we don't go there because the little people are there. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. This video focused on bola, the bola, the weapon that we were using. It was like a rope or string attached to some sharp stones, and they actually showed one of a live bola, a real handmade bola. It was a feather, actually, as kind of the grip area, and then there was braided sinew or some kind of plant material that was braided up and then tied around some kind of bone or rock. And essentially, the main focus from the interview was actually for duck hunting, is what he said was in his case. So I'm assuming that they were whalers. They were whale hunting. And when you're whaling, you can't make a whole lot of noise, apparently. I don't know. I'm learning this from the video. I can pretend like I know what I'm talking about. Whaling, yes, of course. But I don't know. I don't work on the docks, even though I have a hat. Anyway, so, if you get hungry while you're whaling and you can't make a whole lot of noise, the bola is completely silent. And if ducks fly by, you'd be able to and let that go, and it tangles up the bird and drops it. So you have food now. You can have soup or a nice meal or whatever it is. So they were just talking about the bola and kind of the uses for that. And it seemed like the people that they were interviewing was like, yeah, everybody knew about this, and this was a weapon that was very common to use in order to trap food on the fly. And pun partially intended on the fly because of ducks. Wow, this next video called Stranded that I just watched, this man talks about an experience that he actually was stranded and floated away on a piece of ice with his father and his brother. And not just like, a little ice cube and they're all like a cartoon, which is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about, someone floating away on a piece of ice. It doesn't seem highly possible, but the thing is, this stuff breaks off in humongous chunks, probably the square footage of my house, and a big piece of ice can crack away, and you won't even know because you'll think it's solid ground. Obviously, people that are more familiar with the areas would know where the water is and where it's not. But he was trapped with his brother and his father, and as they slowly started drifting away, his dad had thought about tossing them to safety. But if they had been split up, then, it could have been worse than having them all three together in the same spot. They'd at least be able to take care of each other that way. And so they ended up on this piece of ice and just floating off. And apparently, the father kept his cool and was trying to bring out the most positive things that he could about the situation. And he had a phone on him. I'm guessing this is a recent story, but he was talking about, being captured on ice. It's still a thing that we experienced in Never Alone several times, just jumping from ice block to ice block. But 911 didn't answer. So he'd leave a message, and his phone died immediately. And so they're stranded out there. No, no phones, nothing. And a helicopter came by and flew right on by. And then they end up lighting up a piece of their sled on fire, and that's what ended up flagging the helicopter down to come get them. But when I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I thought about the floating away on ice thing. It just seems so cartoony because it's the only place that you see that. You don't see that in a serious format anymore. Um, I can picture from the Christmas specials, the claymation Christmas specials. I think like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and maybe one other friend, or maybe it's just him, and just like floating away on the correct piece of ice. And I know Family Guy's made a gag with a piece of ice floating away, and I've seen it in Looney Tunes. It's just like, it's such a thing that's ingrained into the comical part of my brain that thinks about cartoons and things like that, and to actually like hear somebody's story that had to experience that happening right under their feet. That's incredible. It's crazy. I can't even fathom like the fear and the stress and the everything that comes along with that situation. It's incredible, and that he's here to tell the tale. So in No More Thick Ice, they talk about climate change that people have actually noticed. They were saying that the Inuit people are saying a certain phrase that I don't want to butcher, but they're talking about Sia, and they've noticed that Sia is changing, or their environment, their climate is changing. And they're saying that, 50 years ago, they're hunting on ice that was 80 inches thick, if I remember correctly from the video, and now they're on ice that's like 18 inches thick. And throughout the years, they would see these gigantic glaciers that were, several feet high, just sliding on by, that had broken away. And it's been very obvious to those people that the climate is changing, and that rain will melt the permafrost, and once that melts, it, it lends itself to the destruction of more of the surfaces that you could go and hunt on, for fishing or whaling or what have you that you're going out for. It's very interesting to hear some more personal perspectives on that, because I know climate change has been a political view or a political matter for several years now. I'm not one to get wrapped up in politics. It's not for me. I leave it to the people that are actually interested and know a lot about it. But personally, if you're seeing these things change, then hopefully, as a human race, we could take the steps to step forward and try to prevent it from happening faster. Because unfortunately, our planet is at a point where I don't think there's any returning. It's just on a track now. And I hate to be so depressing, but that's kind of the facts that I've heard. Is that the Earth we've kind of doomed it from not knowing enough about it, and then not taking the necessary precautions to preserve it. And so who knows how many generations are left, but the world is changing. And it's obvious with even the last 50 years, the change in ice. Again, not any political views, nothing. I'm just speaking from the heart about people and about the world. And I think we should care a little bit more. And I'm sitting here recording videos on my computer, so it shows you how much I'm actually doing. But the internet is where your voice is the loudest right now. So some evil leads to some good.